Hello people, I'm Mr. New, you can call me MPage, and welcome to my Yu-Gi Month video. While I am uploading other Yu-Gi-Oh themed videos this month, the video I'm doing right now is being made especially for Yu-Gi Month. And I'm hoping to get some positive feedback on this video so that I can give it its own channel or make it part of the Neo family. But before we can get ahead of ourselves, let's get to the point of this video. Recently, I opened up 3 Yu-Gi-Oh structure decks and got a good look at them. I initially recorded my unboxings and first thoughts, but I decided not to make a video out of them since I figured my audience would likely get bored of it rather quickly. However, I still have the raw footage on my backup drive, and I can use it to make a somewhat prequel to this video if you wish. Instead, I figured we'd skip to the interesting part of the show, where I play these decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro and analyze their strengths and weaknesses to the best of my knowledge and capability. But first, I'd just like to quickly state that all of the decks I unboxed and tested are tournament legal as of the current ban list, which at the time of the script being written for this video was last updated in June of 2017. I'm also disclosing that I'm using the Percival mod of Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro version 1.033.D because this was the latest version available to me at the time of recording. Because of this, there is currently no link summon mechanic, and none of the rule changes that have occurred since it was added have been implemented, which I'm personally okay with. Hell, if Chris was watching this, I can only assume he would be ecstatic to see that this version still exists. So without further ado, let's start with the Kaiba structure deck. Okay, so I'm playing back the footage of me using this deck against Percival's AI, who is currently playing a Yu-Gi deck that came with the program. And I'm gonna be totally honest here. When I first saw Union monsters as a kid, I never understood them. The concept really confused me as a kid, and I still don't fully understand it to this day. This deck doesn't exactly help me figure things out either. It seems like they started with a typical X, Y, and Z themed Union deck, added the new A, B, and C Union monsters simply to promote that they exist, and then lazily imported some of Kaiba's cards to meet the 40 card minimum. I give this deck a 3 out of 10, but since I don't really know much about Union mechanics, or even care about them, you can take that review with a grain of salt if you wish. As you can see here, I tried to work with Union monsters at first, but when that failed, I ultimately gave up and tried to come back with whatever else I could find. The duel came kinda close, but thanks to my own trap card, as well as my own stupidity, that seems to be about as close as I'll ever get. So the Kaiba deck was another fail. At least for me. But we're not done yet. Up next, the Yu-Gi structure deck. What you're seeing right now is footage of me playing against the AI's Kaiba deck, which shares some similarities with the Kaiba structure deck, I'll admit, but due to time constraints, I could not confirm or deny if they're the same. Upon first glance of this Yu-Gi deck though, I think I've noticed something cool about the way this deck was built. It seems to be the opposite of the way I believe Kaiba's deck was built. See, when I played with the Kaiba structure deck, I felt like it was simply taking a Union deck with those alphabet monsters or whatever, and adding random Kaiba crap to it. But Yugi's deck, however, was given a more proper treatment in my opinion. They started with a deck Yugi would actually use, a deck that most people actually saw Yugi use, and integrated the new warriors into it properly by building a new archetype off of cards that Yugi actually used. Since Yugi's deck had Magnet Warriors, they built upon that archetype by adding Electromagnet Warriors and Magna Warriors, whereas Kaiba's deck was only partially his and predominantly Union monsters. Which leads me to question why they would put Kaiba's face on that structure deck to begin with, but the answer will most likely be
screw the rules, I have money.
Anyway, as the footage clearly shows, I beat the AI in about half the time it took me to lose his Kaiba. But then I got an idea. Since the deck seems to perform quite fast, I figured I'd try my luck against an AI running an Exodia deck. And sure enough, I won that round as well. After the duel was over, I wanted to give the deck a 9 out of 10, but then I realized it likely wouldn't bode well in an environment where everyone is using pendulums, synchros, or even Xyz, and without a good starting draw, you're likely to get screwed over rather quickly. It's a good deck to build off of, but as a deck by itself, I can only give it a 7 out of 10. It works great in a pinch, but don't expect to win any hardcore games with it. Okay, so we've seen a deck that respects the legacy of Yugi and on the legacy of Kaiba, but our third and final structured deck, thankfully, has nothing to do with the original series. This here is Machine Reactor. It takes an archetype that Valiant Crowler is known for, Ancient Gears, and fuses them with gadgets in an attempt to make a more powerful conglomerate of machinations. But does it work out in favor of the duelist who is lucky enough to wield such a deck? Let's find out. So this clip here was originally going to be removed from the video for two reasons. One, the AI was using a Harpy deck, which is too fast and too powerful to play against in any sort of deck testing environment. And two, the game occasionally bugs out in its footage. You see those gray cards that seem to appear randomly? This means that images for those cards haven't been downloaded yet. Since I'm using a clean install of Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Percy for this video, I tend to run into this issue a lot, especially while building decks. Even though the proper images only take a few seconds to load properly, it gets annoying at times to have an opponent's card do something to power up their monsters or f*** up my moves, and I can't even tell what's going on without the images, meaning I'd have to wait until my next turn to snoop in their graveyard or read the card on their field to figure out what the hell happened. The reason I'm using this clip, however, is to demonstrate a key card in this deck, Ancient Gear Gadget. Once per turn he can activate his effect, which allows him to change his name into the name of a gadget monster, even if you don't have it. By the way, for the people out there that are using this deck without other gadgets like me, the only three names you need to remember are Green Gadget, Red Gadget, and Yellow Gadget. I won't go into details regarding why, but trust me, you'll thank me later. For now, let's move on to a duel we can actually comprehend. This time I went up against a Kaiba deck again, because he seems better at wielding it than I am. Anyway, this deck seems to be a bona fide Ancient Gear deck to me. Your typical machines are there, all with their typical effects, and aided by their typical support cards. And with the addition of Ancient Gear Gadget, they seem to have capitalized on his archetype by including cards that not only gain effects by using Ancient Gear cards to summon them, but also gain effects by using gadget cards to summon them. This makes it possible for Ancient Gear Gadget to be tributed alongside another Ancient Gear monster, so the new monsters can reach their full potential. My only gripe is that they could have included more gadget substitutes in this deck. But on second thought, it'd likely be easier for the duelist to add their own gadget cards anyway, since most hardcore collectors likely have about a few dozen duplicates stashed in their drawers labeled junk. This deck seems to give off a vibe that it's metaphorically holding your hand through the entire duel, but in my opinion, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If I discovered this deck as a kid, chances are I'd be referring to Ancient Gear Golem as my duel spirit for a while. Overall, I give this deck a 9 out of 10, with little to no doubt in my mind that someone out there will buy it, add their own gadget cards, and with some minor tweaks, make their very own 10 out of 10. And there you have it. I successfully reviewed 3 different Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure decks that you can purchase at your local Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game retailer or online. And if you'd like to try these decks out for yourself in Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, I put a link below in the description so you can download the YDK files and put them in your decks folder. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time with more. Wait, what was that? Well. If it isn't my old friend Michael. Wait a minute, who are you? Oh, my bad. For a moment, I failed to realize that you were trying so hard to forget your past, to hide it from the public eye, and to drown it in a sea of everlasting obscurity. I have nothing to hide, thing I don't remember. I used to go by so many names, 2 of which you might recognize. But it matters not who I was before. What matters now is what I've become, and what will become of you when I'm through. You trying to challenge me to a duel? Why not? Might as well try out this new deck I just got. Machine reactor? I have that deck too. It's right over. You. What? Did I take your best cards? Did I make it impossible for you to defeat me? Boo-hoo. Almost, but I still have this Yugi deck. Wait, what are the stakes though? If you win, you can have your cards back and I won't bug you anymore. But if I win, you're going to sleep. Really? A nap? That's your evil plan? It's much more than a simple nap, young fool. Any victim I put to sleep is sent to an endless inception of their own worst nightmares. They cannot be woken by mere mortals, and they are left with only two escape options. Take their own lives, or become my nightmare slaves for all eternity. And how, pray tell, can you even figure out my worst nightmares? Did I forget to mention I could read minds? Okay, now that just sounds like a load of bull. Can you believe this guy? I can just tell you're trying to test me, so I'll prove it to you. Your favorite color is orange, you're still a virgin, you never graduated high school, your favorite anime is Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and your secret fetish is... Okay, we get the idea! Right, enough fooling around. It's time for you to meet your true king of games. We'll see about that.